Jailbreak has an absurd amount of vehicles. While a large percentage of them are well known and loved or hated, there's also quite a few vehicles that have largely been forgotten by the player base. Here I'm going to try to rank the top 10 most forgotten vehicles in Jailbreak. Now keep in mind, this is based mostly on my personal experience and how often I usually see these vehicles or see them discussed, whether it's within trading circles or in the Jailbreak community in general. In no means is this an objective list, as it's actually kind of hard to determine which vehicles are truly forgot when it comes to Jailbreak. And it's not in a super strict order, though generally the further down we go on the list, the less common the vehicles will get. And without further ado, let's get started. We're going to start the list with the Ray 9. Now, the reason this vehicle is forgotten is probably because it's just okay. It's an aggressively mid vehicle. There's nothing that bad about it, but there's nothing all that great either. I do think the design is pretty good, but I know I've never been motivated to use it. I'm surprised I don't find many people using it because it spawns at the casino, so I would assume it would be a good escape vehicle for people who don't have auto garage and might need potential extra way to escape the casino. But overall, this is a vehicle that I really don't see people using. Then we have the Surus. For quite a while, this vehicle was actually well acclaimed and used fairly often. It was a fantastic team vehicle since it only costs 109,000 J-Bucks. And it was comparable to the Lambo, which at the time had a higher top speed than it does now. It also had multiple spawn points, which helped it out significantly. However, this vehicle's popularity fell like an anvil when the Interrogator was added. The Interrogator took its place at the police bases across the map, making the Surus only obtainable at the prison. And since then, I've pretty much never seen a Surus used. It also got a nerf, which made it less desirable to use. I think it's fair to say this vehicle is definitely forgotten, and one that a lot of players don't know or care about. Next up, the fire truck. Now for a while I would see a couple people using it every now and then, since it spawned at the fire station that used to be over here. But since the removal of that fire station as well as the fire trucks spawn over there, I haven't really seen anybody use it, and the revamp didn't give it much more attention. If I had to guess, the fact that the acceleration is very slow gives this vehicle a bad reputation, so not many people are compelled to use it. And the spawn points are so remote and easy to miss that many players won't even encounter this vehicle. Simply put, there's no reason for people to use it because it's not practical. It's not a very appealing vehicle for people since it's rather slow, and even though it seats 6 people, there's better options if you want to play with others. Overall, all these factors lead to this vehicle being very underused. Next, we have the patrol bike. Now, this vehicle was actually pretty overpowered when it was first added, and a lot of people would use it due to that aspect. Obviously, it needed to be nerfed, though that came at the cost of the vehicle's use. Nowadays, pretty much nobody uses this one either. It's likely because this is a bike, and in general, the players in Jailbreak don't seem to like the bikes in the game due to their wonky driving system and feel. They're a bit more tricky to control. Also, the patrol, while it has great acceleration, it does not have great top speed. Now that the spawn point has been moved further behind the prison, I suspect this vehicle will only decline in popularity. Next, we have the Jackrabbit. Many of the seasoned vehicles are pretty forgotten and neglected, but I think the Jackrabbit is probably the most forgotten out of all the seasoned vehicles. This one just has no buzz or anything. I've not seen anybody using this vehicle probably since Season 9. Even in trading, I don't see this vehicle being used as a bargaining tool or in negotiations, unlike other seasoned vehicles, which you might not see much of in-game. It just seems like nobody cares about it. And the reason for this is quite simply, it's just kind of mid. There's not that much that's special about this vehicle. If players are going to use a limited vehicle in the game, they're just going to use a faster one. When you have straight up tanks in comparison, of course the Jackrabbit is not going to be as memorable. Therefore, I feel the Jackrabbit is definitely the most forgotten of the seasoned vehicles and one of the most forgotten vehicles in general. Taking off the top 5, we have the camper van. This is a vehicle that has been neglected and forgotten about since the very day it was added. I do like the design a lot. I think it looks very cute, but the stats are just not good. This vehicle is slower than the Camaro, but costs way more. Players just aren't willing to spend that much for a vehicle that doesn't have good stats. I'm glad it exists and not everything needs to be super overpowered, but the unfortunate unfortunate fact of Jailbreak is that if your vehicle is obsolete, then players just won't care. And that's easily the main reason why no one uses this vehicle. It's super easy to spot this one. It's not like it spawns in some obscure location that most players don't know about. Players always see it whenever they go to the tomb, yet it spawns too far away to be a good escape vehicle, and the stats are just so bad that no one's going to buy it even as a team vehicle. Next we have the Ray. If I had a nickel every time there was a forgotten Ray vehicle in Jailbreak, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird it happened twice. Now this vehicle was added a whopping 3 years ago, which is crazy to me. Man, I'm getting old. The devs added this vehicle and the Deja because they wanted to make more cheap starter vehicles. Unfortunately, from the beginning, this vehicle was not very popular and a lot of players just don't care for it. I think that's because it spawns at the cargo port and the target audience for this vehicle pretty much never goes there. By the time players start heading to the cargo port frequently, they've progressed far enough to where they don't need the Ray at all and there's no point for them to purchase it. It's a decent car, but I think the spawn really kills this one. I think if it were an escape vehicle at a robbery, it would be far more used. I don't think it works well as an escape vehicle for the cargo port because cops barely camp here anyways. Honestly, this is a vehicle that I often forget about. Kicking off the top 3, we have the ATV. To be honest, this really breaks my heart. I have very fond memories of this vehicle as it was one of the first ones I had ever purchased in Jailbreak. In 2018, when I was playing Jailbreak, I would sometimes play on a computer which wasn't very good. So I remember randomly getting flung across the map out of nowhere when using this vehicle. It actually did have pretty decent stats and I did see it used fairly often. But now it's pretty much totally neglected. This vehicle used to have 2 seats, but then for some reason the devs removed the second seat and the stats were pretty much nuked. The ATV is now the 3rd slowest vehicle in the entire game, only beaten by the tank and the sloop. I'm not even kidding here, I have not seen anyone use this vehicle since 2020. Since it spawns at the train station and it's not really in a hidden spot, I would expect this to be more used. But if you think about it, since it's slower than the Camaro, which everybody can spawn, and it costs 50k, there's pretty much no reason for players to purchase this one when they can just spawn the Camaro or the Jeep and get away faster. This vehicle has a better spawn location than many of the other vehicles covered here. It's still obtainable, and it's been in the game for about 6 years. Yet nowadays pretty much nobody uses it. So I feel like I have to put it near the top of the list. Then we have the SUV. There's a bunch of beginner OG vehicles which have since been retired that have largely been forgotten by players today. But out of all of them, I chose to include the SUV on this list because it was probably the least used even before it was retired. When it was around, I actually used this quite frequently as an escape vehicle and sometimes as a team vehicle since it spawned at the prison. I do actually kind of like the look of this vehicle and I did see it used occasionally when it wasn't retired, but once it was retired, players immediately forgot about it and it's so mid-tier that nobody's compelled to use it. But from my experience, the most forgotten vehicle in Jailbreak is the Sentinel. I think the stats are quite solid for the price and overall it's a great team vehicle. And I really dig the look, though I do wish you could change the color of the orange parts. However, ever since it was added 2 years ago, I've pretty much never seen anyone use this vehicle. That's probably because the only spawn it has ever had was the military base, which many players aren't at for a very long period of time, and it's not the most noticeable vehicle either. Flying vehicles and tank were much easier and more eye-catching to spot than the Sentinel, and what solidified this vehicle as the most forgotten in my opinion was the change in spawn location. Now it only spawns in the level 4 base underneath the military base. This vehicle is basically locked away from 99% of Jailbreak players, since you need to be level 4 to access this vehicle, and the vast majority of Jailbreak players don't do seasons. Because of this, most players will never ever encounter this vehicle, and many probably have no idea it even exists. Therefore, I believe the Sentinel is the most forgotten vehicle in Roblox Jailbreak. But that's going to conclude my ranking of the top 10 most forgotten vehicles in Jailbreak. What do you think? Do you use any of these vehicles on a frequent basis? Do you think there are any vehicles which should have made it onto the list? Make sure to comment all your thoughts down below in the comments section. If you like this video, I've made several videos that are similar to this. I've ranked the top 10 most forgotten features, the top 10 rarest items, and even more. You can find all those videos in a playlist devoted exclusively to the rankings I produce. Make sure to check that one out. If you enjoyed, please make sure to like and subscribe for more content similar to this in the future. And I hope you have a wonderful day or night.